Friends, this is about ready to blow and nobody is watching this. We need to talk about this. We live in a financially insane world. Nothing really makes sense these days anymore. And we talk about a lot of these little problems that we have all over the place that show that basically the whole system is in a big problem. But there is one really big problem that we have, and I'm going to walk you through how this is probably going to be what takes down our whole financial system. And we talk about subprime auto loans. We talk about commercial real estate. And those are all pieces of the puzzle. But we're going to talk about the big kahuna. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. And these are things that the mainstream media just don't want us to get into. The financial news media out there will tell you everything is just fine and it's going to just stay just fine forever. If there's World War III, the stock market will probably go up. Friends, there's money flowing into the stock market, so that's why it's going up, not because the companies are becoming more valuable. In fact, the companies are not becoming more valuable, but money's still flowing in there. What happens when money starts flowing out? And that's what we're going to talk about, when money starts flowing out. All right, so we got a number of different things before us. We've talked about the subprime auto loans out there. Now, this is all kind of coming off of a comment I kind of made in passing yesterday about how the bond market is very, very boring until it's not. And when you have a stock market crash, oftentimes there's a lot of stuff happening in the background with the bond market. Now, what are bonds? So if you ever gotten like a savings bond or basically loaning the federal government money, right? You get that certificate and it says come back in 30 years and you get X amount of dollars, which is, assuming inflation doesn't take all the earnings away from you. But basically, anytime a bank loans somebody money. Now, a bond is something a little more structured than that usually. Basically, if you're loaning a corporation money, or if you're loaning a state or municipality money, or if you're loaning the federal government money. Those are all bonds, okay? So you have stocks where you actually own the company, and then bonds where you don't actually own the company at all. It's just they owe you the money, right? They owe you the money plus interest. You're guaranteed this interest, guaranteed them repaying you back, as long as they don't fail to pay. Now, we just saw Ukraine just decide to go into default earlier this month, where they're like, those bonds that we're supposed to pay? Well, we're not going to pay them. And banks over in Europe are like caught flat-footed. They gave them 2 years of like, okay, we'll just suspend this debt so that you can focus in on beating the Russians, right? Well, the 2 years ended at the beginning of this month. And so they're like, okay, so we need to talk about that debt. We loaned you, $20 billion, and you need to start paying interest on that. And so they talked a little bit, and then Ukraine came back and said, we're just not going to pay it. And when that happens, up until that happens, you have your bond, right? And you're like, this bond is worth X amount, right? But when the payee doesn't pay anymore, that becomes a problem. And so while we have a $19 billion subprime car crisis that banks are going to get slammed by, they've loaned money to people who really can't afford it. That's this big. Now, if you want to talk about way bigger, we're going to talk about the commercial real estate losses that the banks. We're not talking about $20 billion-ish dollars. We're talking about $1 trillion. That's how big the commercial real estate issue is. It's much, much bigger. But we're not talking about either one of those. We're talking about the big kahuna. And we talk about it in passing, and other channels all talk about it in passing, but they don't get into the mechanics of it. The federal debt of the United States, $27 trillion. Now you go, wait, Steve, isn't it like 30 hold on, friends. This is the market. This is the bond market for the U.S. Treasury debt, okay? And it's $27 trillion. You say, where's the extra? Where's the other stuff? Well, there's some accounting gimmicks. There's some this and there's some that. They have some, what's it called? Inflation, Treasury bills. They have some money that the federal government actually owes the federal government, which is weird. But then you just have some other machinations out there of the Federal Reserve holding Treasury bills and stuff like that. And that's all considered to be like kind of off the market. But the debt that the United States actually has in Treasury bills, Treasury bonds, and short-term Treasury, this all has to be rolled over. Like they're adding to the pile. But at the same time, as people have their coupons and their bills, come to maturity, they want their money back, and the federal government's got to give them their money. And if you think the federal government has the money to give them, you're crazy. No, they have to go out there, borrow other people's money to pay back these people. And when you hear it like that, it sure sounds like a Ponzi scheme, doesn't it? That we can't pay you back until we borrow from someone else. And yes, that's like the definition of a Ponzi scheme. And so basically our federal government is running a Ponzi scheme to the tune of something more than the United States economy, which is a stupid number in the first place because 30+% of the U.S. economy is the U.S. government. So if the government were to get out of the economy, it'd be even worse than that, right? So the U.S. economy, GDP is around $25 trillion. The Treasury market is $27 trillion. Now, how much is maturing this year? $1.9 trillion. So in 2024, we've had to basically have people coming in and buying up $1.9 trillion worth of long-term debt. That's longer than 1 year. Now, we're not going to get into the ins and outs of the less than a year Treasury market because that's kind of a little bit different and unique and whatever. But just to put this in perspective, in 2023, we had $1 trillion that needed to be rolled over. 2024, it's $1.9 trillion. And you better believe it's going to go up next year again. If we make it to next year, which is a whole other conversation. So we needed to come up with $1.9 trillion this year to roll over all these bonds and bills. How are they doing that? Well, it's not from you and I. I mean, how many out there actually own, now you may in your brokerage account or your retirement account may own some Treasury bills, but most of us by and large don't actually have any. Now, our banks do. When you deposit money at the bank, a lot of times they invest in there. But where most of this came from, most of this money came from overseas. We got foreign banks. We got foreign rich people investing in U.S. Treasury bills. And that has its own concern right there. Just the fact that we have most of this excess, most of this difference coming up from foreign investors investing in Treasury bills. Now, this isn't like you buy the coupon and then you hold it until, for 30 years until you turn it in and get your money back. That's not how this works at all. You buy it and then you immediately can start reselling it to other people. And you trade it like a stock. And that's exactly what happens out there. And not only that, but let's say you have $100,000 that you want to invest in Treasury bills. So you go out and buy $100,000 in Treasury bills? No, of course you don't do that. That'd be just so stupid. That'd be lame. What you do is you go out and buy $2 million worth of Treasury bills. Where's the other $1.9 million come from? Well, the bank. The bank loans it to you. So you go out there and you put up $100,000. You're allowed to buy $2 million worth of Treasury bills. And you have to pay interest on the money that you borrowed, your margin loan. And you get $2 million worth of treasuries. Now, this is what a wealthy individual could maybe get this, but this is definitely what banks do. By and large, out there, the industry standard is 20-to-1 leverage. So let's say those treasury bills drop by 1% in value. You've just lost 20% of your money. If you were to lose 5%, if they lost 5% of their value, you lost all of your money. All of your money gone. Poof. That's kind of a problem, isn't it? We have banks around the world, individuals around the world, regularly trading at 20 times leverage. If that starts going down just a little bit, you're going to have a whole bunch of people in a lot of pain. We're going to talk about major banks in a lot of pain. Now, I'm all talking about this hypothetically up to this point. Now let's talk about this concretely. The simple fact is, the banks in the United States have lost an estimated $1.5 trillion in losses on Treasury bills. And when you hear that, that's a lot of money. And you say, Steve, shouldn't banks be failing all over the place? Yes, they should be. But along comes the accountants, and of which I am an esteemed member of. And the idea is you just pretend that the stock, that the value of those bonds hasn't gone down. In the promise, in the hopes that the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, so interest rates go up, the value of those Treasury bills goes down. And we have banks sitting on trillions and trillions of dollars worth of these Treasury bills at leverage. And a lot of these banks have lost their hats. They've had to eat their hats. But they pretend like they haven't made these losses. So they're sitting there with the promise that the Federal Reserve is going to start cutting interest rates. So if you wonder why the Federal Reserve feels the desperate need to cut interest rates when things are best ever, according to one of the presidential candidates, right? The reason is because these banks are up to their eyeballs and they're like, if you don't start cutting interest rates, we're going to pop. Not like we're going to get angry, but like we're going to start imploding. We're going to have bank failures right and left. And they're just using borrowed money to stuff all the holes and stay afloat long enough for the Federal Reserve to cut those interest rates, and then they'll be able to get out. That's where U.S. banks are. Now, when we start talking about where are foreign investors, they have all that going on, but then they have something else going on, and that is the exchange rate. Their currencies are devaluing, and the U.S. dollar has gotten stronger, which is great for their investment because they've invested essentially in dollars. Treasury bills are basically as good as dollars. As long as the dollar is strong, you're doing good. If the dollar gets stronger and you're invested in Treasury bills, then you just made money. And if you're leveraged at 20-to-1, you just made a lot more money. But what happens when it goes the other way? What happens when the dollar starts going down? Suddenly all these foreign investors are going to start losing money. And they're going to start selling. And when they sell, it's going to make the dollar go down even more. These are like a proxy for the dollar, except that they trade in such volume that, you could almost say that the U.S. dollar is backed by U.S. Treasury bills, which are backed by the full faith and whatever of the U.S. government, which is a joke because nobody actually expects the federal government to ever actually repay those. So let's cut to the chase here. If the U.S. dollar starts going down, foreign investors are going to start dumping Treasury bills, which is going to make the dollar fall even faster. So you can see the problem there. And as they dump the Treasury bills, it's going to make the Treasury bills drop in value, which is going to blow up U.S. banks. Like I said, this is a $27 trillion problem, and we have the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government sitting there and throwing more debt on top of it to see how much it will take before the camel's back gets broken. We're continually making this problem worse. And as we print money, that's naturally inflation, which drops the value of the U.S. dollar. Now, up to this point, we've been able to kind of safeguard the U.S. dollar by simply being better than all the crap shows around the world. Okay? The European Union is a total disaster. If you're in the European Union, the United States looks actually pretty good by comparison. China, well, the tyranny and all that. People are trying to get their money out of China as fast as they can. And when they get it out, they start buying treasury bonds. In Japan, oh man, that place is an absolute disaster. When over 50% of the stock market's owned by the government of Japan, the Central Bank of Japan, sorry, you got a problem, right? I mean, that's a fake market when they own over half the market. So in these other countries, the United States doesn't look quite as bad by comparison, so they invest in the United States. And because of that, those inflows of value have strengthened the dollar. And people are panic buying. But it's like a bicycle. You got to keep pedaling or else you fall over. And if that money stops flowing in or slows down, the dollar is going to start dropping. And as the dollar starts dropping, you're going to start seeing a chain reaction out there of people dumping treasury bills. And as that happens, we're going to start seeing banks imploding. So, friends, we have the Federal Reserve out there saying they're going to cut interest rates. At the same time, we see the Treasury bill interest rate slowly rising, which means the Treasury bills are dropping in value. We're seeing this starting to move. We're like that roller coaster at the top of the hill. You're kind of moving real slowly, but it's starting to go a little faster, little faster, little faster. And friends, it looks like this fall, if nothing else goes wrong, the Treasury bills are going to blow up. The Federal Reserve is going to try cutting interest rates, and the interest rates are going to go up anyway. And everyone's going to see that the Federal Reserve has lost complete control of this. And they're going to get run over by their own monster. Friends, that is really what we face. So what should you be doing? Keep saying it. Precious metals. Get out of dollars as best you can. Don't even think about loaning the federal government money through treasury bills and stuff like that. Don't do that. That's just dumb. Only dumb foreigners are doing that right now. And they have reasons for doing it because their countries are, in a lot of cases, worse than the United States. Which is, I know, it's hard to believe that, but it's the truth. It's actually worse over there. So they're trying to get someplace better. Don't put your money into the garbage fire that is the federal government. That's a bad place for it. Try to find a better place for it. Buy canned goods. Buy food for you. Pay off your house. Do anything other than be invested in the U.S. dollar and loaning money to the federal government. And be wary of banks. These banks are not being honest at how much money they've lost. They've lost so much money. The federal government is a Ponzi scheme, and these banks are Ponzi schemes too. They want you to deposit money at their bank. Why do they want to do that? Duh. They need that money so they can plug all the holes in their investment side of things. They're taking your money and they're using it to invest and to shore up their investments because they've lost so much money. They're like a gambling addict needs more money. Don't loan it to them. I mean, if you got to loan money, because you got to do business through your bank account, your business or something like that. That makes sense. I got it. But don't have your investments in there. Don't have your savings in the bank. It's a bad place for it. If you can't hold it, you don't own it. All right, friends, hopefully that made some sense. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible to give you an idea of how bad it is out there. We got other triggers that may start this process faster that we keep talking about, but this is ultimately the engine that will destroy the United States financially. All right, friends, keep your head up. Don't be a part of the system because it's going to blow up. Figure out your own system. Figure out your own way of trading, getting what you need apart from the banking system. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report.